What is up, everyone, and welcome back to episode 13 of Three Gyms Talk Hockey. We're kind of entering the off season, and there's not a lot of hockey to talk about. There's not a lot of news to talk about, but one thing that we do have to talk about is the schedule release that just came out today. So the NHL released their 1,312 games for the 2025-26 NHL schedule, which opens up on October 7th with a triple header. But before we get into a deep dive of the schedules and just little notable dates and games on that schedule, I want to touch up on something that we've spoken about the last couple podcast episodes, which is our prospects. So obviously the draft just passed. We've had training camps, development camps, and 8 first-round picks from the 2025 draft have already signed their entry-level contracts. The 8 notable names are Anton Frondell, Jake O'Brien, Radim Murka, Benjamin Kindle, Carter Bear, Braden Coots, Victor Eklund, and Lyndon Lakovic. Yeah, so those are the 8 notable names. So we've had everyone from a top 3 a lottery pick to as late as the 27th overall pick. Before we hit record, Milko, you said that you did not even realize that a majority of these guys had put pen to paper with their NHL teams. Which of those players kind of stood out to you the most looking at the list of players that signed?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of these signings kind of went under the radar, and I wasn't hearing much about them. The biggest one for me is the Anton Frondell signing. Obviously, being a top 3 pick, during the draft process, said I think he has the highest potential to be the best player in that draft. And I stand by that because he's a very talented player who really kind of has everything in his bag. And kind of like we were talking about off camera, I really could see him out of all the guys who have signed entry-level deals. I could see him being really the only guy that gets NHL minutes this upcoming season, just based on what Chicago needs. And, Bedard needs another guy to play with him. So I could see them giving him some earlier minutes. And, I think he could be very exciting to watch. Another big one was the Victor Eklund signing. So the 2 Swedes, that was the one that I heard about, but I don't really, the way the Islanders development process is going, I don't really see him getting that many minutes. Maybe they fit him in there for maybe a game, but I would highly doubt it. Maybe if they're having a terrible season, they just want to throw him in there for a game or two. But besides that, I don't really expect any of these other guys to be really getting NHL minutes yet, sign their ELCs, but outside of that, I don't think most of them are going to be playing.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that Anton Frondell is the only player who has signed his contract so far that I think could be a full-time NHLer if Chicago decides that that's what they want him to do. The rest of these guys, I don't want to say that none of them are going to get NHL minutes, because I do think that maybe a handful of them are on their opening day rosters, and if not opening day, they might play 5 to 7, 8, 9 games, depending on where they are and where they fit into the lineup. So I think Frondell is the only player that really has a chance of being a full-time NHLer, but then you have other guys like Victor Eklund, like you mentioned, he signed with the Islanders. I think that he may play just under the allowable number for a year of his contract to not get shed off. But at the same time, you look at those 2 Swedes, and they played together in Sweden. So who knows, maybe one's decision could affect the other's decision. For example, I don't think that Victor Eklund's going to play over a handful of games in the NHL next year, if any. So I think that he's going to play his number. He's going to do what he has to do, what the Islanders want him to do in North America, and then they're going to send him back to Sweden to kind of play out the rest of the season without eating up a year of his contract. I think that's the best route to go. But then the one thing that I want to add is that those Swedes, since they're not in the CHL NHL rule doesn't apply to them. So they have an opportunity to play in the minors in the AHL if their teams choose that's the best route for them. But the one question that I'm uncertain about is how that affects their entry level contract. Is playing in the American League going to eat up a year, or is it not? Which obviously plays a big factor in what teams do, because if it doesn't, the AHL may be the best route for a majority of these non CHL players who have already signed.
100%.
Um, another player, I mean, down the list, as we said, Jake O'Brien, I think, was the first player to sign. Jake O'Brien, I'd be surprised if he plays any games in the league this year. He's, in my opinion, he has a lot of room to grow. He's very small, not small, but you know what I mean, he's lanky. He doesn't seem like he's ready to take a hit from someone like Tom Wilson just yet. So
Yeah.
so
I also
Jake,
do want to throw something in there. Outside of the guys who have already signed their entry level deals, I would not be surprised if Michael Misa joins this list pretty soon.
100%.
Just based on the season he had, and honestly, the way he kind of fits what the San Jose Sharks are kind of doing right now. I would be surprised if San Jose didn't decide to sign him this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was the guy who ended up playing the most NHL minutes, because I see him as a guy that you can plug right into that lineup and fit in with Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini and what they're doing. Because you look at all the young guys that they have, I feel like Michael Misa's shown he has the necessary tools and has the ability to fit with these NHLers. And I feel like it would be smarter for San Jose to try to put him in the lineup as soon as they can, or as soon as they feel ready, which I would anticipate being sometime this season, and then having him just fit the role of what it is to be, a centerman in the NHL with the other young guys around him. And, who knows how much that could pay off, but I don't know if having him go back to the OHL would be as beneficial for him at all. I mean, there's always the NCAA question in the question revolving, but I'm pretty sure the portal closes pretty soon, and there hasn't been that many rumblings about Misa going to the NCAA. I know there were earlier in the year about him potentially going to BU, but I feel like that's kind of simmered a little bit. So again, I would be very surprised if we don't see Misa signing that entry level deal pretty soon.
Yeah, going off that, I feel like we would be hearing a lot more about Misa if he was going, or like if he was planning on going to college or going to the NCAA to play college hockey. I feel like because we haven't really heard anything circling around his name, I think the Sharks will give him his entry level sometime in the summer, and I think we will see him in a Sharks jersey this year. I think it just makes sense. Like, you're already such a young team, you're trying out guys. Get Michael Misa's feet wet. Get his feet wet with the players he's going to be playing with for the next 10 years. You already kind of have your young core there. Might as well get him acclimated to acclimated to the players that he's going to be playing with. And like I don't see a downside with, I would say, rushing him to the NHL, but when you're that young and not that great of a roster yet, I don't see any problems with it, and I think the Sharks should do it.
I agree. I think Michael Misa. Okay, so we started off talking about the guys who signed their entry levels. That doesn't necessarily mean that I thought Frindell was going to be the only guy to be a regular NHLer. I think Michael Misa will be too. Those are for all the reasons that you just pointed out. The Sharks, the team, the way that they're kind of rebuilding, like where they're at right now, which is another reason why I think Frindell will play with Chicago this year. But kind of going back to the CHL NCAA talk, if he puts pen to paper, that automatically kisses his NCAA chances goodbye. So I think that at this point, since he hasn't, I don't want to say since he hasn't committed yet, but since there haven't been rumblings and NCAA college talk, I think that Michael Misa, it's safe to say that the chance of him going to the NCAA are slim as of right now. And like you said when you first started this conversation, Milko, I don't think that the OHL has any benefit for Misa right now. He's just going to go there. It's the same thing as Gavin McKenna. He's going to go back to the OHL and he's going to dominate. At a certain point, being so much better, producing at such a high level compared to your competitors hurts you more than it helps you. Yeah, it's cool to walk around, be the big guy in the block, have 2 points a game, but at what point does it become almost like playing a few years down rather than a few years up. You never hear of players growing up playing a few years down. It's always a few years up. So for those reasons, I agree. I think Michael Misa is probably the most guaranteed NHLer for next year, at least out of this draft, which kind of leads me to someone like Matthew Schaefer, the first overall pick. I'm not necessarily sure what's going to happen with him yet. I know that all the talks are pointing to him wanting to be on the Isles opening day roster, but realistically, if he doesn't play in the NHL, I'd want him in the NCAA. But what are the chances of that happening from the second that if the Islanders want to give him a chance to make the opening night roster, he won't be able to be at development camp or training camp, if he does play NCAA because they'll already be in school. So
yes. No, yeah, you can finish.
So that's kind of the one thing when it comes to the NCAA kids, where if you're already committed, if you already know that you're playing college, you've already, I don't want to say kissed your shot of being in the NHL next year away, because there is always season's end, but the chances of you being on the open night roster are none. Like right now, we don't know if James Higgins is going back to Boston College.
I would highly presume that he goes back to Boston College, and I would absolutely recommend it. Staying on the topic of the NCAA, I feel like there's going to be a lot more discussions that heat up, because the typical signing period where, like, we just saw McKenna last week, which we talked about, but the signing period for going to the NCAA typically ends on August 1st. That's at the end of the month.
Around the corner.
There's about 2 weeks left in July. And there's still a lot of high talent that is still in the OHL. You were talking about Schaefer. We haven't talked about a guy like Porter Martone yet, and then obviously Misa, who we just covered. But you haven't really heard anything about those guys and what their plans are. But, they have about 2 weeks to figure out if they want to go back to college or if they want to stay in the OHL, essentially. Because, like you said, Schaefer, I believe he should either go to NCAA or stay in the O. Probably it'd be more helpful to go to the NCAA. Same thing with Porter. I think it's a better path to getting to the NHL, and I think the NHL or the NCAA game will translate a little better than these Canadian junior leagues do to the NHL. So, I'm sure we're going to start hearing a lot more about what these guys are going to be doing over the course of the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. I'll take us back to Schaefer here, because you kind of started and we kind of dove away a little bit. I think Schaefer is going to be in the league, and I don't think that's going to be midseason. I think the Islanders are going to put him on the roster right away, because I think they want to see him at their development camp and training camp. And you said the college period to sign it is before that. So I think the Islanders want to see him, like what he's got against all like the rest of their prospects, like see him how he fits into the main team. And after they do that, I think they'll just send him up right to the main team, unless like he gets injured or he shows like he's very weak, which I can see. He's pretty skinny, he's pretty scrawny, but his skill is unmatched compared to what the Islanders do have. But yeah, I think he's going to be in the league right away, and I expect him to play almost a full 82-game season.
Yeah, and kind of on the same topic of if he just, like, aside from the signing period for college, it's also the fact that to be at training camp, you have to be under contract. When you're under contract, you can't play in the NCAA. So it really is one way or another. I think that it's either the NCAA or it's the NHL, and right now I think that all fingers are pointing to the NHL in terms of Schaefer, because it goes back to what we were saying. I feel like another year in major junior might not do you as good as maybe a first professional season with not as much responsibility. I don't expect this kid to be a first pair defenseman at 18 years old. I mean, he's not even 18 right now. So that's actually another thing that I wanted to point out that I completely forgot until I just mentioned it. But Matthew Schaefer is not even eligible to sign a contract yet, because he doesn't turn 18 until September 5th, which kind of puts him in a little bit of a weird position in terms of like that age. So that's something that I feel like gets unnoticed a little bit, just like how young he is, and the fact that he legitimately won't be able to sign his entry level until he's just about to go into training camp or right into the preseason.
Wait, I
So
have a quick
that's
question about that.
shoot.
Didn't Bedard have to sign his deal when he was 17 though? Like his parents had to sign on with it or something. So technically, can't you still sign if you're 17? There's just a different way of going
Um,
about it.
to be
'Cause
honest, now that
I swear Bedard signed when he was 17.
um, so to be honest, I feel like I do remember something of that nature. I remember his parents being involved in like the signing. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if one of you guys with like a free hand could kind of look up to see when Bedard did sign his first official contract, like when that date was and when his birthday is. But
He was 17 when he signed. I'm trying to
he,
figure out if he had help from his parents or not.
yeah, because I'm pretty sure that maybe how, yeah. While Dozer's looking into that a little bit, that kind of got my head thinking a little bit. Did Bedard's like parents sign his first
I think
NHL
they
contract
did.
for him?
I think they might have had to sign on with him. Like he signed it, but they had to like sign it off. You know how like when you're a little kid and you had to like get your parents to sign off the waiver for you to go on like a field trip or something.
Oh, no. He signed his
Like,
first NHL contract on July 17th, which was also his 18th birthday. So
oh, okay.
he signed his first NHL contract on the day he turned 18. So I get
Same
close
thing.
enough.
Well,
That
Yeah.
is really close.
Yeah, that's really close because I was gonna say like you twisted my head a certain way. Like I remembered something along those lines, but I was gonna say for some reason I feel like that's not right. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into I guess like NHL contracts that even I don't fully like grasp yet. Like at least in terms of Schaefer. So at least Schaefer's age is what I meant, not necessarily Schaefer. But yeah, those are the first rounders who have put pen to paper so far with their NHL teams. A majority of them are expecting to play major, junior, wherever that may be. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a handful of these guys play a handful of NHL games next season, kind of get their feet wet and see what the NHL lifestyle is like before they go back to juniors and kind of prepare themselves for that following season when they're really ready to make that next jump. Um, all right, now I kind of want to talk about the schedule. I feel like the schedule coming out, there's always something to look at in terms of notable dates, player returns. I feel like this year we have a lot of players returning, quote unquote, home to teams that they grew up with and kind of developed their careers with. So, as I mentioned at the start of the pod, the NHL released their schedule for the 25-26 season earlier today. Today's July 16th. And we start off with Florida versus Chicago. So, we're getting the best of the best and the worst of the worst. First NHL game of the season. It is also banner night for Florida. For the second straight year, they will be raising a Stanley Cup banner. So, that's opening of our NHL season. 5:00. And then the second game of the NHL season, Doza, you'll already be locked in. The Rangers are playing Pittsburgh at Madison Square Garden at 8:00. So we'll see a solid rivalry, a Metropolitan Division rivalry, second game of the season. Then you have LA, Colorado at 10:00 to complete the triangle. Yeah, I mean, first day of the NHL season, pretty solid lineup. I like obviously I feel like you kind of have to start with the Stanley Cup champions. I'm not surprised that they picked Chicago because of Bedard. Whatever the mindset may have been behind that, but at the same time, like I would have loved to see Florida play. I don't know, maybe like a better team to start their season, like banner night. But I understand,
Tampa,
like
dude.
well, that would be sick. That was the first thing that kind of came to mind. I would have even said like a Boston, but like Boston's not good right now.
Nah, we'd get
But
wheeled.
yeah, so that's like the one thing that I have to say about the opening day. But LA, Colorado, I feel like that's going to be a barn burner. I think that's going to be the best game of the day, if you want me to be completely honest. But yeah, that kind of three games in a row. I love that. The following day, TNT has a doubleheader as well, so we got a lot of hockey to open up the season.
sneaky underrated return that I think you kind of flew over your head a little bit is Mike Sullivan returning against the Penguins for
Oh my god, that is that
opening night
game.
of the NHL. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that'll be a
okay,
little
okay, okay.
interesting. Mike Sullivan, who coached the Penguins to 2 Stanley Cups,
Yeah,
leaving to go to the Rangers, and now first game back on a new team is against the Penguins. So
yeah, yeah,
that
that
should be
actually
pretty
did fly
fun to
completely
see
over my head.
his interaction with Crosby from the other bench.
Yeah, so that I was actually gonna point that out. Funny enough, the Penguins open up their seat, or I mean the Rangers home openers against the Penguins on the 7th, which is obviously the second game of the NHL season. And then on the 11th, funny enough, the Rangers return to Pittsburgh. So that's Mike Sullivan's like return to Pittsburgh game, which I had jotted down, but that actually did go completely over my head. Rangers Pittsburgh to start the NHL season. So that's actually another very notable thing to mark down for the beginning of the NHL season. But one thing that I know we all three of us loved last year, we sat down in front of a TV for 12 hours, watched 16 games. Yes, I'm talking about the Frozen Frenzy. It's back this year. It'll take place on October 28th this year. It begins with a 6 o'clock game, and it runs through 16 games until every single one of them is done. So all 32 teams in action. Fellas, I know we loved it last year. We loved the idea. What are your guys' thoughts and expectations for it this year, having already seen it once before?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll go. I mean, I think the NHL could do a lot better of a job. I'm not gonna lie. I'm being a little bit of a Debbie Downer. I loved it last year. All 32 teams playing one day, but I still think they could do a better job, and I think they will. Was last year their first time doing it? It was, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So first time doing it, kind of like the draft lottery. I think they botched that a little bit this year as well.
I agree.
But um, yeah, I think they'll change a couple things around. I think they got to get more multi-viewing screens going. I didn't really remember a lot of that last year. I feel like it was kind of tracking one game at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little different of commentary. Maybe get a Henrik Lundqvist on instead of just like an Anson Carter and Biz. But we'll see. I think they'll definitely make it better. They're improving every step of the way. So we'll see.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I love the idea of the Frozen Frenzy, and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. I'm looking at the schedule right now, and there's a few notable games. You got Vegas, Carolina. You got Devils, Colorado, which should be good. There's a lot of like fluff games though, where I feel like aren't going to get a lot of viewership.
No, because our team's got each other on that day
I know,
too.
I know, I see that. That'll actually be a pretty good game. It'll be a battle of the bums. For at least I know the Bruins probably won't be that well. But from a betting standpoint and from just a hockey standpoint, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great day where you can just kind of get off work and watch hockey for the next 6 to 7 hours, and it'll keep you
Listen,
entertained.
game one's at 6 o'clock. The last game starts at 11. So you got
You might even
solid.
have longer than 6 hours,
Yeah.
7 hours, maybe like
I was
8,
gonna say you probably
9.
have close to like 8-9 hours of hockey. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one's complaining about that.
No, not at all. But yeah, kind of to build off of what you mentioned, Dozer. I really think that the NHL could do a much better job. I do think that it's a trial and error type of thing. But one league that they really gotta watch out for, or hopefully they did watch out with, is the NFL with what they do every Sunday with Red Zone. I mean, they sit and they track every game. I think Red Zone, Dozer, I mean, both of you guys, but you guys are both big football fans. You have Red Zone, you watch Red Zone. We used to watch Red Zone all the time together. That's the kind of structure that I'd like to see. But then again, hockey's a more difficult sport to do something of that nature because you don't know what's going to happen when. Not saying that you do in football, but at least the whole point of Red Zone is they're in the red zone. So
Yeah.
you can't really call it like a crease thing, like, oh, when you're by the net. You know what I mean? So it is a little bit tougher, but I expect them to make some kind of changes in some way to make it more beneficial. Like you said, Dozer, see more of the action more frequently, kind of in a more flowy state.
Yeah, I mean, logistically, I think it'd be really hard to try to do a red zone type idea because hockey's pretty much always constant action, where in football there's so many stop and go plays and commercials where you can kind of divert you can divert the TV to another game because you have 4 games in commercial or someone's hurt and this and that. Whereas in hockey, even if there's a whistle, the game's pretty continuous. So it would be kind of cool to see how the NHL tries to manage that. And the other thing that's tough is I feel like it's really hard to watch hockey if you have YouTube TV and you do like a quad box or you do 2 boxes. It's really hard to kind of pay attention to hockey just because of how fast the game moves and how small the puck is. And so like if you have to condense it into a smaller screen, I feel like it's really hard to kind of pay attention. So it would really be kind of interesting to see what the NHL does and how they can kind of work with network providers about ways to enhance that. Because then again, it's only for one day. They do this once a year. So it's not like it's something that has to be permanent either.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, it is hard to kind of track a bunch of those games. It's like, for example, you have either 15 or 30-minute increments between games, which isn't that much. Like, all right, when you get a game that starts at 7, a game that starts at 7:30, the 7 o'clock game is most likely going to be heading or in first intermission when that 7:30 game starts, and you kind of go back and forth. Like, obviously, a little bit of the period is going to get overlapped, but it is. I'm very excited. I'm very interested to see what they do in comparison to last year. But the one thing that I want to point out that just I don't really get it. It's why on a Tuesday? It's like, why not do it on a Friday or Saturday, even like a holiday Monday when people are off? Like, I understand that the first game doesn't start until 6, so assuming you work a 9 to 5, you're home by game 1. But generally, it's like I feel like that's more of a weekend-ish type of deal, just because the last game's at 11 o'clock. Okay, granted, if you're on the East Coast, like, it is what it is. But if you want to watch all the games, you can't. And then also on that topic, if you're on the West Coast, first game's at 3 o'clock. So you might be in the middle of your day. So
Yeah,
that's the
fair.
one thing that kind of confuses me, why they decided to do it on a Tuesday, because I feel like they did have it on a weekday. I feel like they had it on a Tuesday this past year as well. I'll double check myself on that, but
It was
that's the one
definitely
thing I
on a
want to point
weekday.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, because if they did it on a weekend, they could at least, if they wanted to, they could start the games at 12 and just rifle them off all day. So that actually, I don't understand the logistics behind that either. I feel like you would make a lot more money if you were to do that on a weekend, and you'd bring a lot more attraction to it if you did it on a weekend rather than a weekday when people are getting off work and they're tired. Then, most people aren't going to stay up till 11 o'clock watching hockey. If you're a casual fan, maybe you stay up for your game, but you don't care about the other ones. If you do it on the weekend, at least you can attract. You know what? I guess it's actually tough because if you're doing it in October and you try to do it on a weekend, you have to battle with either college football on Saturdays or NFL Sundays. So maybe push it back to December and do it then when, college football's over for the most part, and the NFL, they can take their Sunday space, but you can maybe fill up that Saturday slot.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm going to say is last year was on October 22nd, which was once again a Tuesday. But I completely agree. Like, I understand why it's not on a Saturday, Sunday for, like you said, football. That's what people do on weekends. Saturdays for college football, Sundays for the NFL. But like you said, there's no rush to get through the frozen frenzy. You know what I mean? Like, even if you wait until, how sick would it be to do like the last day of the NHL season before, or the season before they go to Olympics, to the Olympic break? How sick would it be to have the frozen frenzy right before then? It's like something similar to that. Like, that's going to be in the winter. There's not going to be any football. You could pick a Friday night and just buzz through 16 games. But I don't know. There must be something within the schedule that they love. They love late October, and I understand it's the beginning of the season. Like, guys are getting their legs under them. You're going to get some good hockey, but I feel like you're going to get even better hockey in the middle of the season with guys in mid-season shape. So, but yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. I enjoyed it last year. I think, like we said, the coverage could have been a lot better, but what you do the first time, you try to fix, you try to make it a little bit better. So I feel like the more often the NHL does something of this nature, it's only going to improve. I'm sure NFL Red Zone wasn't what it was after one take, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But Dozer, we briefly spoke about Mike Sullivan coaching the Penguins for the Rangers in his first game as the Rangers head coach, exactly where he was for the last decade, won 2 Stanley Cups. Fast forward 4 days, the Rangers are now in Pittsburgh, and Mike Sullivan is returning to Pittsburgh. That, to me, playing your former team, what is that? I want to say like twice in your team's first like 3 games. That's how do you feel about that? Just like being a Ranger fan, like obviously I think that it could be very beneficial, kind of just like get it out of the way. I feel like you get certain jitters at the beginning of the season. So just to kind of combine the jitters of playing or coaching against your former team and the beginning of the season, and kind of just meshes. So I think that that's kind of a good thing. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how it goes for coaches like returning. I think they're obviously sentimental to the place they were. They won 2 chips, and he coached one of the best hockey players ever. But I mean, like I'm kind of happy it is at the beginning of the season. I like that. Get it out of the way. Like, don't let him worry about it if they do like think about it like that. But the Penguins aren't going to be that great of a team this year anyway. I think we all expect that, and it's kind of just like a little start your season off on a good note and get to business with your new team and try to get back to the cup. And I think that's his goal. I think that's everyone's goal. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's 2 ways to look at it, realistically. Like playing devil's advocate, I think that it's a good thing. Like you said, you get it out of the way. It's over with. Now, the bad thing is playing a team like Pittsburgh is they will be a bottom feeder team next year. So now you look at the possibility of later in the season you're fighting for a playoff spot. You might not play Pittsburgh at the tail end of your season when you might need an extra 2 points, or I don't want to say an easier 2 points, but play a bottom feeder team versus a team at the top. On that same day, on October 11th, Mikko Rantanen goes back to Colorado. The one thing I'm going to note is this is not his first game back in Colorado. He played his first game in Colorado on March 16th as a member of the Dallas Stars. He recorded an assist, and then on top of it, he played against Colorado in the playoffs. We all remember that Game 7. We were all together for that, jaws to the floor. What kind of reaction do you guys think that Mikko Rantanen gets in his return to Colorado after that playoff series?
I personally think he'll still get the respect of the fan base from there. Helping that team win a cup is kind of an unforgettable memory, and it'll always be a good memory that they'll have about him. And it's not like he really did anything dirty to the Avalanche. If anything, the Avalanche kind of did him dirty by dishing him kind of under the radar, not really telling him, and not working with him on contracts. I mean, Dallas signed him to a pretty good deal at 8x12, and I think Colorado might have been off the mark, but it was still the middle of the season, or
well, I don't know about off the
later
mark
end of the
because
season.
well, you also got to remember that when Colorado traded him, the new salary cap arrangement hadn't been released yet. So I feel like they jumped the gun. They got scared of losing him for nothing.
So I feel like Colorado's gonna have I don't know if they'll do something for him because he already had his return.
Yeah, I don't expect them to because they already gave him a tribute.
I would expect the fan base to have the respect for him. Maybe they boo him, but it's not out of hate. It's just
yeah, he ended their
fuck
season
with him. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the one reason why I kind of want to bring that up, because that hat trick ended their season. So it's almost like, all right, Rantanen did get done more dirty than he did the Avalanche. Like, he didn't do anything to the Avalanche. So, yeah, I feel like not mixed emotions. It's definitely going to be more of a happy welcome, but I could definitely see those few fans kind of booing him just because of what happened in the playoffs. But Milko, the next big date that I have marked is Brad Marchand's return to Boston on October 21st. Whether you're in attendance or not, like, how could you not be excited to see Brad Marchand. Like, he wanted to stay. He made it clear. He made it known that he wanted to stay. And it almost felt like Boston was the one that was like, "Hey, we're not willing to pay you," and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
I think it'll be an emotional night, especially for Brad Marchand. It'll probably be a little weird being in the visitor locker room, wearing a different jersey, kind of. You played there for the first almost 20 seasons of your career, and you couldn't work out a contract, and then you go on this kind of big run in the finals. So I definitely think the fans are going to be ecstatic. They're going to be crazy. I hope I get to go, but I don't know. I can't really say if I will. I think it's going to be emotional. And if anything, I think Don Sweeney gets a bunch of boos for dishing him and not willing to give him the money that he quite frankly deserved, as well as he was willing to take that pay cut to stay with us, and we still wouldn't budge. I think our number was 3.5. We weren't willing to give more than 3.5 AAV, which is kind of ridiculous considering, he was our captain and he was our longest tenured player at the time. So overall, I think it'll be an exciting night. I think the vibe in the building will be kind of high. And I would also expect Florida to bounce us by like 5 goals. So,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know about bounce you by 5 goals. I mean, it's anyone's game at any point. But
dude, look at
no,
their
definitely,
roster.
Brad Marchand's definitely gonna get a really big standing ovation. How can you not love Brad Marchand? I mean, he brought you guys a Stanley Cup. He did everything for you guys. He went above and beyond for the organization. Like you said, he was willing to take a pay cut, just not that big of a pay cut. So I expect a very warm welcome for Brad Marchand in Boston on October 21st. Fast forward 10 days, Nikolai Ehlers, the new member of the Carolina Hurricanes, is returning to Winnipeg. No bad. I mean, I don't think I've really met a hockey fan that hates or doesn't like Nikolai Ehlers. So I expect nothing but a warm return to Winnipeg. He did a lot for the organization. It just didn't work out. He's just somebody that wanted to test the market, change the scenery, and keep marching forward towards his goal of ultimately winning a Stanley Cup. So not much to be said there. I think Ehlers, we're all in agreement that he's going to get a warm welcome back.
I kind of disagree a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
I feel like I don't think anybody hates Ehlers. Like I get what you said. He's not a hateable person at all. He's a quiet guy. He goes about his business right. But I feel like out of all the guys that we have mentioned and we're going to mention, he's kind of the only one that left. And I kind of blame him. If I was a fan of that team, I would be like, oh, he left because he didn't want to be here. Out of all these other guys, they kind of left from on their own terms because their teams didn't give him their money that they wanted or deserved. And I feel like Ehlers was definitely getting the contract extensions from the Jets. They're getting offers or giving offers. And he's like, oh, I want to test the free agency market. Nothing against him, but I feel like that's one of the only guys that I think made that decision just because he didn't want to return to Winnipeg. And it makes sense. Winnipeg is not very desirable location to play in. But yeah, I think when Jets fans are pretty nice up there, I don't think they get that rowdy, so I don't expect him to get booed. But if I was a Jet fan, I wouldn't be like cheering him on and being all happy, especially after we won the President's Trophy last year and we got nothing to show for it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, that's a very valid argument and points for sure. I think that it's more or less, yeah. Yeah, Ehlers did definitely not force Winnipeg's hand, but he was more or less like, all right, like, I'm going to test free agent market. That's what I'm doing. And a majority of the time when a player does that, you know that they're gone. The talk's always, oh, hey, like, it's not out of the question that I return, but what are the chances they really return? If they wanted to return, they'd sign. So I 100% see that side of the argument. I just feel like it'd be more of a warm welcome just because of everything that he's done, like, just the person that he is. Like, it wasn't a bad, like, from what I've seen, it wasn't a bad blood kind of exit for Ehlers. So that's why, similar to someone like, which we'll get into, Renton in Carolina, which obviously two very different situations, so I'm not comparing the two, but in terms of the reaction that they get, I see a bunch of Carolina fans, for example, not caring that Rantanen's back. Okay, he played 10, 20 games with us, and then he left. Like, it is what it is. We got what we had to in return. But then I could also see the other side where it's just like, hey, like, bashing him because he made it known he didn't want to be there. So I could definitely see both sides because Ehlers did kind of not force his way out of Winnipeg, but he shied away from it, even though they were trying to extend. They were giving him what he wanted. It just wasn't where he wanted to be. So valid arguments. I don't disagree. But the one date that I really want to talk about is Chris Kreider's return to New York. The reason why I want to talk about it isn't because he's going to get hate. He's going to get a big standing ovation. He's essentially Mr. Ranger of this generation. So, Dozer, December 15th. This is right before your birthday. Who knows if you'll be in attendance? I kind of expect you to be completely honest. But we'll see. Chris Kreider returning to New York. How do you expect the environment to be? What do you think the reaction is going to be from the players and even Chris Kreider?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an emotional night. Like, every single Ranger fan I know loves Chris Kreider. Chris Kreider loves the city. He was Boston guy through and through, but he came here when he was 19 years old, and he's played in the playoffs basically his whole career with the Rangers. And yeah, he's top 5 in almost every Rangers category. I think out of all the guys returning, him and Marchand are probably going to be the only ones that get their jersey retired for their teams.
Well, and Toews.
Oh, yeah, Toews too. Kind of forgot about him as well. But yeah, Kreider, I think there's going to be tears coming out of Kreider's eyes on that return. And
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I would not be surprised either. And I think the MSG is going to be buzzing, especially because it's against Anaheim, where should be a pretty easy win as well. So hoping for that, and I hope I'm in attendance for the game.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Kreider, like we said, he's the Ranger of all Rangers. That's when you think of the Rangers, and at least our age group, you think of two guys, and the first two guys that come to mind are Henrik Lundqvist and Chris Kreider. So I expect nothing but a very, very, very warm welcome back to New York for Chris Kreider. Next up on my list is the one that I'm iffy about. I could see it going one of two ways. Mikko Rantanen's return to Carolina. Buddy played 13 games or whatever it was for Carolina, and then essentially forced their hand and was like, I don't want to play here. Like, if I play the rest of the season here, if I'm still a Carolina Hurricane after the trade deadline, I won't be back here next year. So Carolina was put in a position to try to trade him, get something in return, because they did give up a number to get Rantanen. So what are your guys' thoughts on his return? Because from for me personally, I think he's going to get a lot of boos. But at the same time, I could also see fans not really caring too much, but I feel like that's less likely.
If I was a Carolina fan, I'd be pissed because you had to give up Natchez, basically. You had to give him Natchez and Jury to get him, and then he doesn't want to stay. I would be so mad because you get so excited to finally have that superstar X Factor player, and then after 5 or 6 games, he makes it known that he doesn't want to sign long term. He doesn't see Carolina as a place that he wants to stay, and you're basically forced to trade him at the deadline because you don't want to waste the assets you just traded away for a guy you know that's going to leave after the season's over. So if I'm a Carolina fan, I'm booing at him the whole game, just because. I mean, they did take the risk. They did take the risk not knowing if he would want to extend. But at the same time, like, as a fan, I'd be pissed. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand that argument, and I'm going to bring up my argument for. Okay, so I think he's going to get booed. I agree. But I'll give you my argument as to why I think there's a chance he might not get as many boos as we expect. And that's because of the trade to Dallas. Look at who they got in return. Okay, yeah, they gave up some pieces. They got rid of Natchez, but they got Stankoven back. They got they got picks in return. So I feel like their return was a lot more than everyone expected them to get just because of the situation. Obviously, Carolina did not have the upper hand, yet they made back a lot, or they received a lot more than I think any of us really expected them to when we heard that Mikko Rantanen might get traded, which is why when we originally spoke about this conversation, we were, or at least me, I don't remember which one of you two, but I think it was me and one other person, we were saying how if I'm Carolina, I think you're dumb if you get rid of Rantanen. They ended up getting rid of Rantanen, and I loved what they did. So that's part of the reason why I think he might not get booed, and that's simply because of the return that they got. They might have given up a lot, but when they got rid of him, they gained a lot as well. So it's kind of it cancels out to an extent. You know what I mean? Which is what I think a lot of fans not might look at, but it might be like, hey, you know what? We might have ended up with better than what we started with. So who
Yeah,
knows?
I kind of agree with that point, but I don't think fans really think it through that way. And they see a big name fish come and leave after 10 games. They're like, oh, fuck this guy, we're gonna boo him. Which
Yeah.
I think he fully expects to get booed, and I think he's going to get booed.
Mm-hmm.
But you also got to look at what the Hurricanes kind of did with the picks and the draft and the capital that they got from him.
I mean, they
They
didn't
kind
do
of just
shit.
they kind of just turned it into Keandre Miller and Nikolai Ehlers. And
Yeah.
me personally, I rather Rantanen.
100%.
Wasn't going to stay. And one thing I'll add on top of that, Solon, is Rantanen didn't have to tell the Hurricanes that he was going to leave either way. If he didn't
Oh, yeah.
tell them, they would have been royally screwed. They would have got nothing out of him,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would have left. They would have gave up Meechus and Jury, which are two, like, that's a second and fourth line center for you right there for nothing if he just walked. So like good for Rantanen and good for the Hurricanes that he said something, because he could have just walked for nothing.
Yeah.
I was gonna take this another way and I kind of forgot. I remember now. And that conversation that you said you had, it was with me, because I was the one who said I think it would be dumb for them to trade Rantanen after the previous year they traded for Gensel at the deadline and then let him walk for nothing. So my argument was, if I'm a fan, how are you going to go out and trade for two big fishes and then not re-sign either one of them? I would just be, pissed off. You're wasting capital for players that, you get for half a season, not even a quarter of the season.
No, I think, yeah, Milko, like I said, I don't disagree with your point. I bounced off that. Those are you bounced off mine. Like, those are all very valid points, and I think that it all ends in Mikko Rantanen's going to get booed in his return to Carolina.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could make arguments for both sides, but you started off your argument with a very, very valid point. Those are which fans aren't looking at it from a business side of things. They're fans. If they wanted to be in the business, they'd be in the business. So, I think we're all in agreement. Mikko Rantanen gets booed to Carolina. Carolina legend, 13 games. But January 19th, I think that the day that they decided to place this game was thought out. What number did Jonathan Toews wear in Chicago? He wore the number 19. When's his return? On January 19th. So Jonathan Toews returns to Chicago as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. I don't think there's any question here. Jonathan Toews is going to get arguably maybe the biggest standing ovation out of anyone returning. And it has to do with part of the reason that he hasn't played an NHL game in a couple seasons. Led Chicago to 3 Stanley Cups, was under the age of 25 for all of them, 25, 26. So they really, they got Jonathan Toews, they got his best. And I don't think that Jonathan Toews goes back to Chicago in any uniform without a standing ovation every single time he steps foot back in the building. So Jonathan Toews, any thoughts on that, guys? I mean, it's just such an unbelievable story. I'm excited for that game just for the ovation.
I mean, I think you covered most of it. It'll be an exciting night for him and the fans. And again, yeah, you expect nothing but a standing ovation. And I'm sure they'll make a cool video tribute for him, which will probably make him pretty emotional too. Yeah, so, I mean, I think you hit most of the key points. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy besides like the standing ovation, maybe a video. Unless he scores a goal. You think they cheer for him if he scores a goal?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. When Patty Kane returned. He scored an OT winner in his return to Chicago, and I do remember seeing a few Chicago fans not so upset that they lost the game to Patty Kane.
Do
So
you think what if the same thing happens? OT,
that would
Jonathan
be
Toews
sick.
breakaway,
Scripted.
and then he
Scripted.
misses the net.
Yeah, that would. Oh, yeah, and he misses the net. No, that would be so sick. Imagine. I mean, I just think Showtime. That was perfect.
That was
But
so money.
yeah, but Jonathan Toews' return, if he scores, that's going to be incredible. And I also like when this game is placed in the season. Not necessarily saying that this is the reason why it was placed when it is, but by January, I feel like a majority of the NHL's in their midseason form, or at least getting there. So Jonathan Toews is going to have a couple months to get acclimated back to the NHL level, and by the time he's back in Chicago, he's going to be at full speed. So I'm excited to see that game. But one game that I think all of us are kind of on the same page here: Mitch Marner to Toronto. First game back in Toronto. Obviously, everything just went down a few weeks ago. It was a sign and trade, so he didn't leave for nothing, but Toronto essentially got nothing.
Hmm.
What do you guys think happens there? I mean, I think there will be a level of appreciation for Mitch Marner. I really do. I think that, take the playoffs aside, he's done a lot for the organization. He's a Toronto kid. You know, he's a hometown kid. So I think he's going to get a level of respect, but I also think that he's going to get a lot of boos rained down on him just because of how he went out ultimately.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's going to be a lot of mixed emotions from the fan side of things, because you kind of saw it at the end of the season, just the overwhelming frustration for him as a player, you know, throwing his jerseys on the ice, videos of people burning jerseys. So I think it just depends on what type of fan you view him as, because like obviously the fans who had him as their favorite player, or like just enjoy, like they would go to the games to watch him or something like that, they're going to have that level of appreciation. They're going to be excited for him to be back in the building. And then there would be those fans that everyone has who are just, I'll just say it, they're dickbags, and and they're just gonna boo him all game, and you know, be that type of person.
I think Marner's going to get the JT return treatment when JT came back to the island.
But for Marner himself, I think it's gonna be, again, like I think for a lot of these players, it's gonna be really emotional, especially for him, just because he's returning to where he's from, drafted by hometown team, and obviously best friends with most of the guys on that team still.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of want to see if someone rocks him.
That'd be unreal. That'd be.
Like,
I mean,
Matthews
I think it's
gives him a nice one right in the
They don't
corner.
got Revo anymore.
yeah. You don't got Revo no more. That's so true. But no, that'd be unreal. I'd love to see someone try to not run at Marner, but definitely rub up on him.
No, I want to see him get ran over, plastered from behind.
Dude, Marner's
Notes, you've
fast.
been waiting to throw dick bag into this episode the whole
No,
Yeah.
dude, that was that was unplanned. That was unplanned, not
I'm
scripted.
Sure.
Not
That was-
scripted.
I could not be the first one to use it. If there was anyone to use that word first on the pod, it had to be you, Milks. Had to be you. But yeah, just last couple notable returns. Trevor Zegras is going back to Anaheim at the end of the season in March. Noah Dobson returns to New York at the end of the season. I want to say second to last game of the season that the Islanders have. So just a couple more returns. I think those two returns are going to be pretty notably okay. I think even Noah Dobson to the Island, a lot of people think that he might get booed. I think there will be some boos kind of rain down on him, but I think for the most part, both of those will be very positive returns. I don't know if you guys have anything to add on those or any disagreements, but that kind of wraps up.
I think Dobson's going to get booed. You know, Islanders are kind of like the Leafs. They're kind of assholes themselves.
Listen,
Especially
they could be do us dirty and we'll do you dirty back. But Dobson, that's the thing. I don't really think that Dauber. I think I'm okay with how Dauber left because he made it known that he wasn't necessarily going to re-sign. So I'm okay with what they did because they got something in return, which is why I don't think that he's going to get the full John Tavares treatment. On the flip side of things, I understand why they would why he would because, well, he pretty much told the fan base that he didn't want to be here essentially. And that's the truth. That's just the clear-cut bottom line. But at the end of the day, it goes back to kind of that conversation that we just had about Carolina. From an Islander standpoint, I look at what we did with the return and kind of how everything shaped out since his departure, and I have no problems with it. Yeah, was I a little bit upset when Dobson left? Of course. He was arguably my favorite Islander. I have a jersey. I love him. He's a defenseman, but at the end of the day, that's the business. I think he's definitely, like I said, he's definitely gonna get some boos, but I don't think it's gonna be as bad as a majority of people think. That kind of rounds out some of our notable player and / personnel for Mike Sullivan's returns. Then you have the Global Series from November 14th and 16th. Pittsburgh versus Nashville Global Series in Sweden. Always exciting. Love seeing the players go international. Someone's going to be in their hometown. Someone's going to be in their home country. It's always cool. It's a different environment. You see those European fans at an NHL game. How often do those guys get a chance to go to an NHL game? Practically never. So I love the Global Series. Not crazy about the teams that got picked just because, well, Pittsburgh's not going to be that great. Nashville, if they're anything like they were last year, they're not going to be great. So for the sake of the fans in Sweden, I hope that those games kind of round out to be worthwhile watching and paying to go. Let's see. Dozer, Winter Classic in Florida, Rangers, Panthers, January 2nd. I'm pretty sure at some point in the pod we've touched up on this, but I don't understand the point of putting the Winter Classic on January 2nd. That's like the Winter Classic is supposed to be on New Year's Day. That's kind of my one complaint, my one really big complaint about that whole situation. Even this year, the Winter Classic wasn't on New Year's Day. It was on New Year's Eve. So that's kind of my one complaint. Dozer, I know you've been to a few outdoor games. What do you think the environment's going to be for a Florida outdoor game? And may I add that the stadium series between Boston and Tampa, Milks, so both of your guys' teams are playing a Florida team, one in the Winter Classic, one in the stadium series. What do you guys think the environment's going to be like for an outdoor game in Florida?
Is the Boston one also going to be in Florida? Tampa?
Yeah, it's in Tampa.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to keep the ice.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, the Winter Classic's in Miami,
solid.
and then the stadium series on the other coast.
I don't know how they're going to keep it an outdoor arena without the ice just completely melting or be soaking wet. So, I mean, can't imagine that electrical bill is going to be cheap.
You're a big electrical guy, huh?
Yeah, I had to get money from you scammers every month.
Scammers, excuse me. You signed up for it and you requested it.
I did. I didn't willingly sign up for it. I wasn't like, I want to do this.
Listen, dude, that's just what it ended up being. It was a good 2 years. Put it behind you. But but yeah, I mean, I have no idea how they plan on working out the outdoor setting, keeping the ice cold, all this and that, like the logistics. But with technology, with everything that the NHL has at their disposal, I doubt that they would have committed to a pair of outdoor games down in Florida without having a plan thought out of already. So I just think at this point it's going to be more interesting to see what happens. Like,
yeah,
fellas,
I mean, honestly,
we've gone to Florida for vacation like February and we go to the beach. So that's like, I don't understand. Like I'm on the same page. I don't know how they're going to make it work, but I'd be surprised if they committed to those games without a plan already kind of set in stone.
Honestly, I think that picking Florida for the location for that is probably one of the coolest places you could do it, just because there's so much to do in Florida. And, you know, it's such a crazy environment because, you know, their teams are doing so well. So, you know, the fans are going to be going nuts. And, you know, personally, if I had a chance to go, I totally would. And yeah, I think just with how it all works, you can, you know, go watch a hockey game and then go to the beach. I don't think you can really beat that combo. So
don't really think you could do it anywhere else either.
Yeah, maybe you'll meet up with
outside.
Maybe you could meet up with some of the players in the elbow room after.
I was just gonna say, take a trip from Miami, go back north to Fort Lauderdale, and just celebrate or I guess for Dozer, you're hoping not to
Yeah,
celebrate
for Dozer,
a
for
win,
Dozer.
but for Dozer it'd be cool. Could you imagine Florida losing a Winter Classic? Dozer just goes from Miami to Fort Lauderdale, he hits the elbow room. Yeah, we just beat you guys.
So you're Devin Panarin slugging some vodka.
Dude.
Did you hear that story about Panarin
Yeah.
and Revo?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I
At 4
did.
in the morning, Panarin slugging vodka, playing basketball against Revo.
Dude,
Did
that
you
was
hear that he
unreal.
doesn't have a phone? He has a flip
Flip
phone
phone.
still.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have a phone, so Rio had to call him for all the team meetings.
Revo was like his what do you call it?
His chauffeur.
his
Chauffeur, yeah.
yeah. But I think that drinking story was all time. Riva just like, yeah, we get back from a road trip. It's 1 a.m. Panarin just knocking on my door with a bottle of Russian vodka, and we're just playing basketball till 4 a.m.
Classic Russian move.
All right, so like I guess these NHLers know how to have fun even without winning a Stanley Cup. So, I mean, when you combine Revo with a Russian, how could you not? But
Well, if you ever want to have a good time with an NHLer, I guess you can always know you can count on Panarin.
Yeah, you could count on the Russians.
I was gonna
A
say
Russian and a
yeah,
bottle
you
of
could-
vodka, and you're having a good night.
Yeah. I was gonna say the Russians across the board are probably some of the best people to party with. But that pretty much sums up our podcast for today. That's episode 13 of Three Gyms Talk Hockey. Once again, I'm your host, Saul Mijas, alongside Michael Cardoza and Matt Milko. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Till next time, peace.